John, Bobby, and Teddy. This was in the United States during the 1930s. Unusual transport in Venice during the 1950s. Judy Garland and Frank Sinatra in 1946. A crater caused by an American bomb. It was taken at Langley Field, showing the wide crater made by a certain type of bomb released from an airplane. The photo was taken sometime between 1917 and 1918. The year is 1978, and we're in a computer cafe in Japan. It's the 1890s, and there's a family riding a tandem bicycle. It's an unusual one. A worker with a cutting torch is working on the forward escape hatch of a Gatto-class submarine at the Electric Boat Company in Groton, Connecticut. This photo wasn't colorized and was taken for Life magazine in October 1943. A cable car is turning around at its final stop in San Francisco, United States during the 1950s. Arnold Schwarzenegger and George W. Bush are sledding down a mountain in 1991. Composer Alan Menken is holding up his Oscar for Best Original Score for Disney's Aladdin at the 1992 Academy Awards. It was 1964. The 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment commander, Colonel Robert Sink, and officers of the 101st Airborne Division are receiving flowers from a local French little girl after an award ceremony in Carentan, France, in 1944. A woman is paying for her groceries with a check during the 1970s. Iggy Pop and the Stooges live in concert in Detroit, 1968. Raquel Welch in the 1980s. A vendor is selling books. It's Paris in 1900. Rita Hayworth. She was an American film actress and dancer and one of the most famous Hollywood stars of the 1940s. Soviet world champion swimmer Shavarsh Karapetyan saved the lives of 20 people in 1976 when he saw a trolley bus plunge into a reservoir. The 1980s. Babe Ruth is given a Hollywood welcome as he arrives in Los Angeles in 1927. Arthur Schopenhauer, 1859. A little dreamer is wearing a pilot suit while sitting in a toy airplane in 1941. Actress and model Elaine Stewart poses at the beach in Los Angeles, California in 1957. A father is pulling a young child in a whimsical airplane-shaped contraption. It's decorated with flowers, and this is happening in Paris in 1934. Hiram Revels, the first African-American to serve in the United States Senate. Edgar Allan Poe is posing with Abraham Lincoln in Matthew Brady's Washington, D.C. studio in 1849. Mrs. Coolidge and White House pet raccoon Rebecca, 1927. "17-year-old Julie Andrews before she was Mary Poppins in 1952. Iconic duos Samuel L. Jackson and Bruce Willis, early 1990s. Kathy Ireland for Sports Illustrated swimsuit in 1987. We vote in 10 states, why not in Massachusetts? Suffragists, 1915. It's a recoilless rifle mounted on a mule. This was in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas in 1947. Chinatown, New York in the 1930s. A group of cheerleaders smiles for the camera in the 1950s. Neil Armstrong is standing in front of the X-15 rocket plane in 1960. September 19, 1985, Dee Snider from Twisted Sisters talking about censorship and the PMRC in front of the U.S. Congress. A newly installed boat motor-styled Coca-Cola soda dispenser just after its installation at Fleeman's Pharmacy in Atlanta, Georgia, around 1948. All right, here we go. Do's and Don'ts of Marriages, written by Blanche Ebbett in Britain, 1913. Claudia Cardinale at the Venice Film Festival, 1960. Ramon, Emilio, Charlie, and Renee in 1974. Madonna was photographed by Mark Dolangowski in 1976 to 1977, before she moved to New York and became famous. There's an exact replica of the mushroom cloud being carried out on the streets of Tokyo. This was a protest against the British-planned hydrogen bomb test bombings, and it happened on May 1st, 1957. Nikola Tesla, dining with investors at his favorite restaurant in 1894. Paulette Goddard and Charlie Chaplin, dressed as his famous character, the Tramp, in 1936. Baron Lionel Walter Rothschild and his famous zebra team, London, 1898. It's about the photo that led to the creation of the Lacey Act in 1894. Those are the first anti-poaching laws in the U.S. There's a group of men who captured a poacher named Howell. They're posing with 8 confiscated bison heads. Pickle Low Party, July 1939. There's a sign tacked to a pole near the post office. It's on Main Street in Pittsboro, North Carolina. A coal miner photographed at the end of a day's work in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1942. Laika, the first dog in space. No provisions were made for her return, and she died there in 1957. Halle Berry smiles as she competes in the Miss World contest in 1986. Leo Tolstoy. King Faisal in the Royal Palace of London in the late 60s. Natalie Wood, who was 10, and Elizabeth Taylor, who was 16 in 1948. There were suffragettes demonstrating in prison garb with a women's social and political union in 1908. This Easter Island statue was made in 1868. A horse has fallen into the canal in Amsterdam, 1929. Aldous Huxley in 1958, the same year Brave New World Revisited was published. Here's the new thermostat, and then there's the old one from 1957. The official end of the Second Sino-Japanese War. General Heikinkan accepts the surrender of Japan's China Expeditionary Army at Nanjing, September 9, 1945. There's an airman wearing an early oxygen mask from the Aviation Service in 1919. This is an advertisement for an 1802 Iver Johnson safety revolver. The most popular villains from the original old-school Batman of the 1960s. A couple is sharing a smiling photo with their little baby girl. This was taken sometime around the late 1930s or early 1940s. Father Camille Folliet, a symbol of the French resistance, is with members of the New French Youth during the Battle of Paris in 1944. Robert Redford and Paul Newman are playing ping pong in 1969. It's the 1912 suffrage parade in New York. The year was 1980, and there was an Iranian embassy siege in London. Teenagers hanging out, Oklahoma, 1947. John McCain, a United States prisoner of war in Vietnam for 5 years. He endured beatings, heat exhaustion, and had his nails pulled. He was also placed in solitary confinement for 2 years. However, he turned down an early release, unless every prisoner of war taken before him was released as well. The winners of the first women's weightlifting contest, sanctioned by the Southern Pacific AAU, were in Los Angeles, California, on February 28, 1947. The American cowboy myth, which Hollywood made popular, nearly erased the reality of black frontiersmen, like Nat Love. In his time, Love was a celebrated person, known for his amazing skill with a rope and a pistol. Arpad Kerner, a volcanologist, is descending on a rope. He's going down to the mouth of the Stromboli volcano in Italy in 1933. Hawa Mahal, Jaipur, Rajasthan, built in 1799. Whitney Houston performed at Morehouse's Homecoming in 1985. A French girl angrily kicks a passing German soldier. Three children are crossing a rain-soaked street on their way to school in Egham, England, 1913. The first electrocardiograph was introduced by Cambridge Scientific Instruments. Here's one of the world's first lawnmowers, featuring an internal combustion engine. It's from the USA and it dates back to 1918. Johnny Cash is shaking hands with inmate Glenn Shirley during his famous performance at Folsom Prison in 1968. Punk Girls in Stockport Town Center in 1983. Sobering Up Center in Boston in the 1930s. A 60-year-old British soldier lifts 500 pounds of man and steel. 1941. In 1918, the legendary British officer Lawrence of Arabia led the capture of Damascus. Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves, 1996. Terry Farrell, the Star Trek actress from the 1980s. Marilyn Monroe, testing costumes for the movie The Misfits in 1960. Kenneth Arnold, in 1966, is showing an artist's vision of what he saw in 1947. This is considered the first modern UFO sighting. Folks are lined up outside a butcher shop, hoping to buy horse meat. No World War II rationing coupons were needed. This was in North Cheam, Surrey, England, on April 17, 1942. In 1961, a Disney animator works on 101 Dalmatians. The Hoot Hoot Ice Cream Shack. It was built in Los Angeles in the mid-1920s. This quirky, owl-shaped parlor first stood on East Valley Boulevard in Rosemead before it was moved to Long Beach. It was demolished in the 1950s. A Ford collides with a train in Los Angeles, 1955. Young ladies dressed for Easter, Chicago, Illinois, 1941. Factory workers in a Ministry of Supply factory are fitting a gun mounting on a Matilda tank. It's 1941. (1969). The women demonstrate what could be purchased for $1.34 in 1918 and 1945. A woman and a young child are in a sleeping area. It's set up in an underground station in London, England, as an air raid shelter during World War II. The time is around 1941. The Alexandre III Bridge in Paris in 1957. Waterski polo, 1920s. Peasants read books. A book is a farmer's best friend. It will teach you how to properly run a farm. 1929. The fight against illiteracy in Soviet Russia. Anthony Daniels smoking a cigarette on the set of Star Wars in 1977. Jack Nicholson relaxes at the Cannes Film Festival in 1981. Freddie Mercury, also known as Farrokh Bulsara in Bombay, India, in 1958. George Harrison of the Beatles, taking a selfie at the Taj Mahal in 1966. George Lincoln Rockwell, who founded the American Nazi Party, is at a 1967 rally. John Kennedy and Richard Nixon after the second Kennedy-Nixon debate, 1960. The artist Frida Kahlo, 1929. South Korean dictator Park Chung-hee is next to Cheonho Bridge in Seoul in 1976. The Soviet Pavilion at Expo, 1967. Montreal, Canada, 1967. Kurt Russell, Victor Wong, and Dennis Dunn on the set in 1986. A cutlery set designed by Salvador Dali in 1957. Brigitte in Venice, 1958. Carrie Fisher and Peter Mayhew on the set of Star Wars Episode V, The Empire Strikes Back, in 1979. A Russian soldier is sticking out his tongue. This was around 1990. A test drive of an antique desk as a mobile office on the streets of Amsterdam, Netherlands, 1961. Circus performer Sylvia Theron is on the roof of a skyscraper in Hamburg, Germany during the 1960s. A man's taking a roadworthiness test in Hungary in the 1980s. The Kodak's British office is on Clerkenwell Road, London, in 1902. Spain, 1957, mother and daughter. Melvin Sokolsky, Bubble on Seine, 1963. All right, so it's behind the scenes of Dazed and Confused from 1992.